Now this 1 BHK apartment next to me doesn't need any introduction, does it? It's the Force Gurkha, the off-roader's off-roader, the Desi G-Wagon, which by the way, not my words, it was in Force Motors' own presentation last evening. Now it was given a big update back in 2021 and it's been given arguably an even bigger one this time around. There are changes to the engine, to the suspension, to the ground clearance, to the interior, to the features list, and one more thing. It's even bigger now. How much bigger? 425 millimeters, and every single one of them has gone into the wheelbase to give you those 2 extra doors and an extra row of seats. But that's not all. Both this 5-door and the 3-door have been jacked up, with ground clearance increasing from 205 mm to 233 mm. Plus, the front suspension is completely new, which helps with approach angle and gradability. The end result, this Gurkha 5-door is nearly 2.1 meters tall without the roof rack and almost 4.4 meters long. It really is like a building, and if you see it in your mirror, you'll want to get out of its way. The styling hasn't changed much since the last update, and we really like those full LED headlamps with their signature DRL pattern. And of course the indicators on the bonnet top, the chunky side steps and the optional ladder, roof rack and windscreen guard. What's new however are the wheels that have moved up from 16 to 18 inches. Wish the alloys were a bit more rugged looking though. Now if you love the Gurkha, give this video a thumbs up, and if you like this sort of thing, please be sure to subscribe to the Autocar India channel. We have new videos come up here every single day. And if you want to be notified about every new upload as and when it's live, click on that bell icon to stay notified. In a slightly different sequence of things, let's start with the newest section of the car, the middle row. Okay, that's a big step up, isn't it? The floor itself is very high and the seat is well at my waist level. Luckily, there is a grab handle for you to hold on to and a step which is quite high in itself for you to haul yourself up and down into the cabin. Now, once you're in place, you notice that this is a nice, wide, if a little bit flat bench, but it's comfy enough and you sit upright with a good view out through the center over here. Knee room is a little bit disappointing, not too much over here, although headroom is really good. What makes the knee room problem a little bit worse is that there appears to be a toolbox or something under the driver's seat. I'm sure you can remove it, but right now it prevents your feet from sliding any further forward. It's a nice big window with a power switch over here, thankfully not just in the front. And initially I thought there was no AC vents, but there they are right up there on the roof with their own blower adjuster. But the other thing you need to know about this bench is that it is not adjustable in any way. It doesn't slide back and forth, it doesn't recline, and most of all, it doesn't split or fold. So access to the 3rd row, like in the 3-door Gurkha, is only through the back door. And of course, that too is a bit of a hike. So you swing the big door with the big tire open, grab onto the ladder and use the step once again to get into this really high 3rd row space. Once you're sat here though, the seat is very comfortable. There's a nice glass area, though it doesn't open, and though not great objectively, knee room is good by 3rd row standards. You can even squeeze your feet under this 2nd row with a little adjustment, but you have to be aware that the wheel arch does intrude quite a bit, so you're sat a little offset. There's a good sense of width here because there are just 2 seats, but you also have to bear in mind that with the seats in place, there is no luggage room to speak of, except between the seats. There's not a whole lot of space back there. And if you do have luggage, you're going to have to clamber over it to get in and out of the car. You'll also notice that there are 3-point seat belts back here, and in fact 6 out of 7 seats have these. Only the middle row center seat features a lap belt. So that's quite a unique 2-3-2 seating formation. Let's go check out the 1st row. Now, though they have made some quality of life improvements to the interior, it's important to remember that this is still very much a purpose-built off-roader and less of a lifestyle vehicle than some of its rivals. You can see that in the utilitarian dashboard design, below average fit and finish, and plastics that are not only hard, but in places sharp as well. The quality of life improvements they have made are armrests for all of the captain's chairs in the car, and this flash new gear lever that looks a little bit premium than the one they had before. Importantly, they've taken away the lever that used to shift from two-wheel drive to four-wheel drive and four-wheel low and replaced it with an on-the-fly rotary knob. But if you want to activate the front and rear diff locks, you still have to wrestle with these levers over here. Now while we're down here, this is a very nice center console with lots of storage thanks to the lever that's no longer here, 2 cup holders next to the handbrake and even a phone storage space. The door pockets, however, are dismally slim. Quality all round is tough and hard wearing, nothing too fancy, and it gives you that rugged feel from the driver's seat. The steering wheel is basic, as you can see, not a single button in sight. It's a huge round rim and it is even adjustable for rake and reach. Although the adjustment is not too much and the ergonomics are not so great because taller passengers will find their knees fouling with the steering wheel as the pedals are quite close to you. It is a very tall and upright seating position which gives you a great view forward. But the seats have almost too much thigh support. They do brush with the underside of your legs, but they are very, very comfortable. I cannot fault them for that. The other big talking points are the new 9-inch touchscreen, although it is very obviously an aftermarket unit and very basic in its operation. More successful is the digital driver's display, which shows you all sorts of stuff, which drive mode you're in, which gear you're in, the off-road settings, and even a tire pressure monitor. And with that, let's take a look at the features list, which has been given an upgrade since the last time around. New additions include a much needed rear parking camera and sensors, and of course those new screens. There's still a lot missing compared to most modern SUVs like wireless charging, ventilated seats, an auto gearbox, a sunroof and plenty else. But as with a lot of things on the Gurkha, basic is just part of the package. So what did you think about the interior of the new Force Gurkha? Does it suit your rugged lifestyle? Let us know down in the comments below.
और हाँ, एक बात और, अगर आपको यही सेम वीडियो हिंदी में देखनी है तो कमेंट सेक्शन में जाइए, वहाँ पे आपको लिंक मिल जाएगा। ऑटोकार इंडिया चैनल को सब्सक्राइब करिए।
And there's one area where basic is potentially better, and that's off-road. Force Motors curated a small off-road course for us with obstacles that might have posed a challenge for lesser 4x4s. But in the Gurkha, it was like potholes and speed breakers. Quite frankly, this might look intimidating in any other car, but it seems, at least from where I'm sitting up here, like a walk in the park for the Force Gurkha. Mind you, we're not even using the diff locks today. It's just four-wheel drive low. Thumbs out, definitely. And the car is just doing it all for me. First gear, low range. Down into a trough. Now we're onto the side slope. Okay. And I'm not even slightly perturbed by this. Neither is the car. Yes, I'm at a bit of an angle right now, but so what? I'm so confident that it'll pull through. One wheel in the air, back down. This is the calmest I've ever been off-roading, I think. What we've got up ahead is a test of ramp breakover angle. And I'm told with the car's increased ground clearance, which is now 233 millimeters, it's not going to scrape on this massive mound in front of me. So, here we go. Whoop. Slowly now. Slowly now. Whoop. Of course, this is a curated off-road course, so they know exactly what this car can and can't do. But still, when you're sat here, it's pretty amazing to experience it firsthand. If you thought the Gurkha was unstoppable off-road before, you should see what it can do now. I'm actually a little disappointed I won't be getting a chance to engage the infamous diff locks, because that's all part of the fun. And that's what you get a Gurkha for. That got over almost too quickly, and just to have another go, I went around again in the 3-door, which got through the course just as easily. We've seen the previous Gurkha sail through far tougher stuff than this, and frankly, we can't wait to give the new one a bigger challenge. The thing is though, as invincible as the Gurkha always has been off-road, it did have a few compromises on it. But is that still the case? So having just set off in the new 5-door Gurkha, two things immediately spring to mind. First, on these tiny Goa streets, I am so glad for this tall seating position. The view out is just superb and you don't take too long to get used to plotting such a large vehicle down such a narrow road. You're sat well high above the bonnet and of course those two indicator lights on top of the bonnet, much like the G-Wagon, help you place it a whole lot better. The second observation is that the AC works really well. I think it's nearly 40 degrees outside today, but whether you're sat in the front or in the second row or in the third row, both these ACs do a great job of cooling this massive cabin really quickly. But on to what's under the hood, and looking at the spec sheet, it's clear they were after one thing: beat the Thar. The engine is the same 2.6 litre common rail diesel engine, but power has been bumped up from 91 horsepower to 140 horsepower, and torque is up to 320 Newton meters. They've achieved this by basically upgrading everything. New injectors, new air intake system, new flywheel, new turbo, and much more. There's even a new 5-speed manual gearbox to handle the extra torque. Now make no mistake, this hasn't been transformed into some sort of rocket ship. This is the same lazy, low revving engine that we know and love. With that said, the power band has been expanded a little bit more. It makes more of its power a little higher up in the rev range. It's no longer at around 1000 to 1500, under 2000 RPM. It goes beyond 2.5 and into 3000 RPM. Beyond 3000 RPM, it's got nothing left to give. But until then, the power is spread out a little bit more, and that makes it nicer to drive out on the road here. It'll still cruise ably and smoothly in a high gear at low RPMs with little need to shift down. And yes, though you might miss some of that extremely low down torque that you got with the old version of this engine, in most use cases it's fine, and in fact, when you're out on the open road, it's even better. The gearbox, they say, is entirely new. And yes, while the clutch is quite light, the gear shift action itself is quite notchy and the throws are very long. Particularly to go down into the lower gears, it does feel a little tricky at times, which makes it just as well that you want to stick it into a gear and hold on to it. For example, here we are at about 30 kph in third gear, 1500 RPM. Put my foot down, slight delay, but then it gets going. You don't feel the need to shift down. But as you cross 2000, it's all out of breath and you want to go into fourth. Does the performance feel stronger? Oh yeah, it certainly does. Especially because you can extend this engine a whole lot more than the previous one. But ultimately, it's still a big, lazy, old workhorse of a diesel engine. To help you save some fuel, there's an auto stop start function and also an eco mode, which cuts so much power, it feels like you've gone back to the old 91 horsepower engine. We don't recommend it. As for handling, what's that? You're sitting basically on the first floor in this car. And it really feels that way. The steering is nice and slow and lazy, and at no point do you want to push it hard around a corner. This is a car with a seriously high center of gravity, higher than even most off-roaders, and that can really be felt around a corner, even a very slow one. It rolls and it pitches and it tosses you from side to side, but that's all part of the fun, right? Now the steering, it's nice, big, meaty, hydraulically power assisted. And yeah, what comes with the territory is quite a lot of kickback over bumps, so you got to prepare for that. But once you've made your peace with that, and provided you're not at an absolute standstill, it's quite easy to maneuver this big car around, even in traffic. I do have to say that this longer wheelbase, 425 millimeters longer, does add to the stability considerably. We've been driving around in the 3-door version as well, and through corners at high speeds, it just doesn't feel as reassuring as this one does. Now, ride quality is typical of a big, heavy ladder frame SUV. This 5-door version is about 120 kilograms heavier than the 3-door version, but when they both weigh close to 2.5 tons, it's not too much of a difference. In fact, Force Motors' own engineers just shrug it off as a slight inconsistency. And even though they have moved up from 16-inch wheels to 18-inch wheels, that hasn't had too much of an impact on the ride. Yes, it's incredibly lumpy over bumps. You hear a lot of suspension noise from that live axle behind. But again, as is typical of a car like this, the faster you go, the better it gets. And bumps and potholes are just smothered out once you pick up speed. An area that could do with improvement is the brakes, which just don't feel strong enough for the bulk of this gigantic SUV. Refinement, again, never one of this car's strong points, but it has improved. There was a big improvement in the 2021 update, and it's a little bit better now. You're never going to escape that diesel grumble that is ever present, but as long as you're in a high enough gear, it's something that you can put in the back of your mind. To sum up the driving experience then, it remains one peppered with the sort of compromises your average urban driver would scoff at, but which serious off-roaders are usually happy to accept in exchange for proper off-road ability. A real SUV, if you will. In fact, I think they probably enjoy roughing it out a bit, which really is the Gurkha's thing. Well, one thing's clear, whether you choose the 3-door or the 5-door, and despite all the many upgrades to this car, the Force Gurkha remains the 4x4 for the seriously committed. Its main rivals, the Thar and the Jimny, do make some more concessions to comfort, and they could potentially be your first or only SUV. But this is a recreational vehicle that could be your second or maybe even your third car. However, this 5-door, guys, adds a whole lot of practicality, and it's even a little bit more comfortable out on the road or in the rough stuff. And in the rough stuff is really where you'll want to take your Gurkha, because out there, it's all but unstoppable.